Hello and welcome. Today I'm so excited to share with you the new Hung Vanngo Beauty line, and I want to give a huge thank you to Hung Vanngo for gifting me with the items featured here today. I have all 8 of the eyeshadow palettes, so we're going to swatch them all. I also have several other items from the line, and we're going to go through details, swatches, formulas, so forth. And I also would like to give a thank you to Tom from Refer, who is actually friends with Hung Vanngo, and he was kind enough to suggest me for being on the PR list. So thank you so much to both of you for this opportunity. And let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll do the eyeshadow palettes last, and I do have everything labeled here in the video, so all the chapters and so forth, you can skip to the sections you're interested in. If you're not familiar with Hung Vanngo, you have definitely seen his work. He is, if not the best, one of the very best current makeup artists right now. And you know, his work, you've seen them on celebrities, you know, ad campaigns, you know, he's been everywhere. So, you know, very, very high profile clients. I think right now the younger generation mostly knows him as being Selena Gomez's makeup artist, and he does a lot of her makeup for the big events and so forth. But he has worked on countless other celebrities and so forth as well. So I have been a huge fan of his for many years, and you know, so I've been a huge fan of his for many years. So, you know, of course, I'm very honored to have received this PR, but I'm just so excited that he has finally launched his own makeup line. I'm not going to go into many details about him as a person or his artistry because that really just speaks for itself. I will leave his YouTube channel linked down below. He does a lot of tutorials and things like that. So, you know, I would definitely encourage you to check that out as well. And let's go ahead and take a look at some of the products. All right, so I have 3 of the liners. So this is one of each of the formulas. We have a soft velvet kohl eyeliner. We also have a long wear eyeliner and a long wear lip liner. So these two, the long wear lip liner and eyeliner, have the same packaging. So let's start off with the lip liner here. You can see you can pull off the end to get a little sharpener. And this is going to be a twist up product here. And I have this one in the shade Follow the Natural Shape. So let's go ahead, we'll put this on like this. You can see it is going to be a creamy pencil here. It goes on smoothly, and you can see you can smudge it out in the beginning. We're going to let this sit so you can then see how much smudgeability you have with this. Let's swatch the other ones. And then the long wear eyeliner I have in One Eye at a Time, which is this really pretty kind of teal blue, like a peacock blue here. And again, we'll smudge the top portion so you can see how that blends out. And again, very creamy formula. It goes on, it will set and stay put. We also have the soft velvet kohl eyeliner, and I have the shade brown. So this one's different because this is actually going to be your traditional wooden pencil. So you do need a sharpener for this. It did not come with a sharpener. So any regular sharpener will work. I have the shade brown, and you can see that this is going to have a bit more of it's a little bit of it's creamy, but it's a drier texture, almost a little bit more papery in a way. And you can see that the brown here is a nice medium tone brown, and it's a neutral brown. So when you smudge that out, you're not getting like really yellow overtones, but you're also not getting any like super cool like grayish undertones either. So it's going to be a pretty neutral brown. And you can see that this one it's a little bit more of a powdery formula when you blend this out compared to the long wear eyeliner. Let's see if you can kind of see the difference in the finish. We definitely have more of a velvety finish here. And this is, you know, I hesitate to say satin because it doesn't really have much of a sheen, but there's a little bit more of a sheen in comparison to the kohl. And the long wear lip liner and eyeliner going to be more comparable in formula there. So you can see those in action on the eye when we're looking at the eyeshadow palette demos. But first, let's take a look here. So here's our lip pencil. You can see it's been maybe a minute or so, and it's still slightly smudgy, but it's staying put pretty well already. If I waited another minute, you wouldn't really be able to smudge that. Here is our longwear eyeliner. And between the lip liner and the eyeliner, they're both very creamy. They both will set, but I would have to say that the lip pencil is just slightly creamier than the eyeliner. But you can see this one has pretty much already set. And the kohl, it's a little early for this one. This one's still a little smudgy. This one will set not as strongly though as the longwear eyeliner. So, you know, depending what you're looking for, the kohl is definitely great for smudging out. They both work well for smudging out. Between the two formulas, my personal favorite is the longwear eyeliner. It comes in some gorgeous shades. We'll talk about product details for the eyeliners when we're doing the eyeshadow palette demos and the lip liner with the lip demos. But let's move on first to some swatches of the blushes. So I have two blushes, and let's just go over the packaging here. So as you can see, we do have more of a square shape here. This is going to be a click closure. We have a full-size mirror here, and you can see we do have a piece of plastic covering the mirror. That's going to be there on the eyeshadow palettes as well. This one here is called Second Language, and these are going to be a matte velvet formula. So here's Second Language, and you can see that this is going to be, it's kind of a coral. It's a little bit of a peachy rose. So almost like a soft coral, peachy rose kind of shade. And then we have Single Mother. This is my favorite of the two that I have. And this is going to be a bit more of a more vibrant pink. I think this one you can go in and build it up more to this color, but you can also go in with a very, very soft touch and just kind of get that really pretty pink flush. Because you can see we've got a little bit of vibrancy with this pink shade, which is, you know, it's a pretty neutral shade, but we have a little bit of that vibrancy from almost like a neon hue in there, which kind of just awakens the complexion a little bit. So I think this one is my favorite just because of what it does to my skin tone when I have it on. Let's look at those demos. So I have a few demos here with the blushes, so you can kind of see, you know, straight off the bat how they look with a light application versus built up. So you can see the true depth of color you can get with these. So if you've got a deeper complexion, this might be helpful for you. But I also have some demos of how I've been wearing them usually and, you know, putting them on with a lighter application, which is my personal preference for my skin tone. I love using more of an angled cheek brush for this, something like what's called the 3D shape, where it is going to have a flat back and more of a rounded front there. So that would be my personal preference. I like a soft, airy brush for these particular blushes. You can see it's a really beautiful soft velvet finish, but it's not going to be a flat matte. We have a little bit of radiance with it, and I feel like, you know, depending on how you put this on and what kind of foundation and so forth you're wearing, you don't really need a highlighter. As for product details, the blush comes in 6 shades. They retail for $32 US. These are made in Italy. We have 8.5 grams of product in each blush with a 2-year shelf life. So I feel like, you know, that is very generous. For those interested, this is a vegan product, so I think that's always something important to note. And according to the Hung Vanngo line on Sephora, this is a creamy velvet powder blush that blends perfectly into skin with a cloud matte finish that wears all day. That's kind of the perfect description, cloud matte. You know, you get a little bit of a sheen from like the sun kind of peeking through, but you have that cloudy, kind of a blurred velvet finish on the cheeks. It goes on to say this cashmere-inspired formula quickly melts into skin to add radiance with smooth, blurring coverage. The highly pigmented formula features a second skin technology that wears perfectly over makeup and gives a long-wearing finish in 6 expertly crafted shades, 3 warm and 3 cool. Although the description says that we have 3 warm and 3 cool shades in the blushes, the cooler shades are really more neutral, leaning a little cool. Nothing here is going to be overly cool. However, they all have something sort of in the undertones there that kind of just awakens and brightens the complexion. So I think that works really well for a variety of skin tones. And there's nothing here that's going to be overly cool. I have not tried the warmer tone blushes, but that's definitely true for the cooler ones. I think they're going to work for a wide variety of undertones and skin tones here. As for the formula, it definitely lasts all day. I do have a wear test with the eyeshadows where you can see the blushes as well. So you can see that those definitely hold up well all day. And you know, it really gives kind of this soft, kind of this blurred cloud-like sheen on the skin. And I think it's a really beautiful product. I love the blushes personally. I think they're a really nice formula, and you know, you're getting a very sizable quantity here of a high quality product. So I'm really happy with those personally. Let's go ahead and take a look at the lipsticks. All right, so here's the lipstick. You can see it says Hung Vanngo. Here we have the HV logo on the top here. And we do have a magnetic closure. This is a plastic case with kind of like this brushed finish. And I have 3 of the shades. You can see we've got the HV on here. This first shade, I did look up the pronunciation, but this is Meme. And I'm sorry if I'm not saying that correctly, but when I first saw it written down, I was thinking Mame the movie, if you've ever seen that very, very old movie. I forget who was in that. It might have been like Rosalind Russell or something. But that's what I was thinking of when I selected this shade. And this here is going to be described more as like a rose. But to me, this is going to be more of a peach on my skin. I have neutral undertone, but I have cooler overtones in my skin. So, you know, things can look slightly warmer on me here. So this is going to be more of that peachy rose, not more of a pink rose. And I think it's a really pretty shade, but my favorite one is the one that is on my lips right now, which I've been wearing like all week. I've worn this like every day, and that's called First Cover. And I have to say, this is definitely going to be one of my favorite lipsticks. You can see how pigmented it is with one swipe, just right there, and you can build that up. We're going to talk about the texture when we look at the lip demos in a minute, but you can see that this is going to be a really beautiful kind of a rosy berry shade. We do have a little bit of a bluer undertone in here, so it's definitely going to be a cool tone shade. I just absolutely love this. So it's just a stunning shade here. And then we have Vanngo Red. And this, let's put this one right here. This is going over my bone. This is going to be a bit more of a warmer tone red. This is neutral, but it leans warm. So it is going to be kind of your classic red. It reminds me of a slightly warmer version of the Dior 999. So again, we have Meme, we have First Cover, and we have Vanngo Red. And let's take a look at these on the lips and talk a little bit about this. The lipsticks retail for $29 US. We have 3.8 grams of product, a 1-year shelf life, and these are made in the USA. There are 14 shades available, and these are described as a full coverage matte finish lipstick. They are long wearing, and again, these are also going to be a vegan product. And according to the information online, this is an intensely pigmented lipstick with a modern matte cloud finish that lasts all day. The creamy formula is infused with hyaluronic acid, vitamin E, and other emollients to hydrate and lock in moisture in one swipe, so lips never look or feel dry. The 14 unique shades were specially created by Hung Vanngo and feature an innovative suspension technology to deliver vibrant, uniform color every time. Now, let's talk a little bit about the formula and what it feels like texturally. Now, I do want to note that the lightest shade that I have, the Meme, that one feels a little bit more, like slightly creamier in texture, more satin-like in texture. All of these are going to have kind of that satin matte finish. It does give a little bit of blur to the lips. In terms of texture, I have to say, I think it's a really unique texture and I really like it. And what I mean by that is, you know, we've all tried satin lipsticks. We've all tried matte lipsticks. We've tried those matte lipsticks that have that satin-like texture. We have the ones with the powder-like texture. So again, the Meme, that one feels a little bit more satin-like, a little more creamy, but the other two that I have, First Cover and Vanngo Red, they both have a little bit more grip to them. There's a little more resistance when you're putting it on. They're very highly pigmented. They're very smooth and creamy going on. They don't feel dry. Actually, you know, I feel like they are very, very comfortable on the lips. But you know, if you're familiar with like the Guerlain eyeshadows, the original ones that came out a few years ago with more of that putty-like grip kind of texture there, which is kind of similar to the new Sisley eyeshadows in the quads that just launched. Those are products that kind of stay put where you put them, but then you can softly blend them out to your desired look and finish. And that's how this lipstick is. You actually only need to put on a tiny bit. You can kind of just blend that out with a fingertip or a brush to get a softer, lighter pigmentation level. But regardless, these lipsticks just give you more control. They are creamy and hydrating feeling, yet at the same time, when you're gliding them over your lips, you can feel that they are going exactly where you are put it. When you are applying these to your lips, they're creamy, they're hydrating, they feel very smooth going on. There's no resistance in the sense that, you know, the pigmentation doesn't feel like it's coming off or it's tugging on your lips. But what it feels like is that you have like direct control over the pigment. You're putting it exactly where you want it. It's not spreading, it's not dispersing at all, even a tiny bit on its own, and you're in complete control. So I actually find that incredibly helpful, especially for these more pigmented shades, because you really can apply these very easily, very smoothly, but exactly where you want them. And sometimes when you're working with those brighter colors, you know, if you're not a professional, like I'm not, you know, it can definitely be a little bit harder to get that perfect crisp edge. And this formula, I feel like, lends itself really well to that. So that's what I like about it. A lot of times we'll see lines designed by makeup artists or even other companies and so forth where, you know, they look so great, but they can be a little bit harder or more finicky to apply for the average person. And these, I think the texture works really well for anybody. So I'm very happy with these. I love the pigmentation level. They're incredibly long wearing, particularly the two more pigmented shades that I have. So in the wear test that you'll see with the eyeshadow palettes, you'll see the lipstick that was left over after I wiped it off with a tissue. Like this will definitely leave a stain. You will have pigmentation all day long, yet everything comes off very easily with makeup remover, or I use a cleansing oil at the end of the day. So that's one of the great things. You don't have to like tug to remove anything. That's true for the eyeliners, the eyeshadows, the lip products, everything. So very happy with how all of that performs. And as for the lip liners, they retail for $24 US. We have 0.4 grams of product. They're made in Korea with a 1-year shelf life. So these are described as an ultra pigmented creamy lip liner with a smooth gliding application for a precise finish that moves with your lips all day. The long-wearing lip liner features a flexible polymer that evenly deposits pigment and sets color to move with your lips all day. It also features a built-in sharpener for expert precision. 7 neutral and 2 red shades were specifically created by Hung Vanngo to pair with any shade of lipstick for your favorite lip combo. I think the lip pencil is creamy, it's easy to use, you've got some great colors. I like how we've got the included sharpener there. You know, I think it's a really nice product. But for me, these lipsticks, particularly this first cover shade, is just such a wow product. I love it. All right, so let's take a second. We're going to look at those swatches one more time, and then we're going to move on to the eyeshadows. So these were the eyeliners. We've got the Velvet Kohl in brown. So let's go ahead. We'll kind of smudge over here, and you can see that we do still have a little smudgeability with the Kohl pencil. And that's going to be normal for a Kohl product. This here, you can see our long wearing eyeliner. That's not really budging. And our lip liner here, let's try this part here. You can see that there's a tiny bit of smudgeability with that, but it stays put pretty well. So in the shades here, we've got the Kohl in brown. This is going to be the long wearing eyeliner in One Eye at a Time. And then we have the lip liner in Follow the Natural Shape. As for the lipsticks, here we have Mema, First Cover, Vanngo Red. We've got the 2 blushes here in, this one's Second Language and Single Mother. So we've got some really great products. I'm going to remove these swatches, and then we're going to go ahead. We're going to swatch all 8 of the eyeshadow palettes and then take a look at some demos. All right, so just like the blush, we have the same type of packaging, but this is going to be a rectangle. So here's the blush. You can see it's essentially half the size, just about, of the palette. So it's 2 blushes is slightly longer. So that's our dimensions here. What I love about the rectangle palettes, easy to store. And again, we've got that same plastic kind of brush finish here, full size mirror in here. And then we have 8 shades in every palette, and there are 8 palettes. Each palette is going to have a mix of finishes here. To keep it simple, we basically have shimmer versus matte, but there are some formula differences in there, and we'll talk about those as we're going through. So this first palette here is called Rebellious Red and Pink. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Our first shade here is going to be kind of a velvety shimmer. You can see how smooth and creamy that is. And this is kind of like it's almost like a soft brick red. And this is going to lean a little bit warm here. We're going to go across the top here. So this is going to be a velvety matte. And you can see this is almost more of a clay rose. Next, we have a shimmer. This is going to be a pink shimmer with a little bit more of a cooler tone here. So this is going to be a cooler pink. It's neutral, leaning a little cool. And this, it's creamy, but when you spread it out, you can feel a little bit more of the shimmer particles here. And it's going to be fairly, the shimmer in here is, I would say it's not incredibly finely milled, but it's in the finely milled category there. And then next, this is going to be more of a satin shade. And you can see this is going to be a subtle satin. You can really sheer this one out. We've got very subtle shimmer there, just a little bit, and that is going to be more finely milled than what we saw in the shimmer here. This is going to be more of a neutral blush pink with a little peach in there. For the bottom row, we have, again, another velvety matte here, and this is going to be a red shade. And this is going to be a neutral red. Next, this pink, I'm just trying to, I don't think it really shows up on camera very well, but it's not a duochrome or anything, but you do see a little bit, when the light hits it a certain way, sometimes you see a little bit more of an orange flip to it, and other times you see more pink. So this is going to be a warm pink there with a little bit of orange. Next, we've got a matte, and this is going to be more of a silky powder matte. And you can see this one is going to be cooler in tone. It's more of a burgundy red. And then our last shade, again, another silky powder matte. This is going to be a soft blush, it's like a peachy pink here. So this is the Rebellious Red and Pink palette. This one here is Outstanding Orange. And again, we have a mix of different formulas and finishes. So this one here is going to be more of that velvety matte here. And you can see this is like a true orange. It is a true orange. Think of like the fruit. So then we have a shimmer, and you can see that this one here is going to be more of a creamy metallic. So you can see it looks a little bit chunkier when you first put that up, but this melts. Look at this. As I go over it with my finger, you can see it just kind of melts into the skin, and then it turns into more of just like this soft metallic. But if you want to have more of a flakier look with this, it depends on how you apply this. You can just kind of press it in and have more of like that chrome flake kind of appearance. And you can see this is going to be more of a soft orange with a touch of champagne in it. Next, we have a velvety matte again. And this is going to be a slightly warmer, dustier orange here. We have this shimmer, and this is going to be a thin, more of a satin shimmer here. And you can see that this is going to be more of a peachy orange. It's going to be very soft and light. Bottom row, this is going to be your silky matte. And this is going to be your rusty orange. We do have a little bit of red in here. Next up, we have a slightly deeper peachy shade here. And this is kind of in between these two formulas that we talked about. So it's not going to be as strong as this metallic here. It's more of a soft metallic. You can see we've got a lot more iridescence than we do with the satin, and it's going to have that creamy velvety texture to it. All right, this next shade here, this is going to be more of a soft satin, but you can see we do have a fair amount of shimmer. This is a more shimmery satin. It's very finely milled, and this is more of a yellow orange. And then we have a silky powdery matte here, and this is going to be more of a soft peach. So this is Outstanding Orange from here to here. So Rebellious Pink and Red, Outstanding Orange. All right, so I don't really want to remove the swatches, so we're gonna try and get 2 more palettes here on this arm. So that way at the end, we have all 8 that we can look at once. We're gonna move into the wonderful Warm palette. And if you like warm neutrals, this is a fantastic palette for you. All right, so we're starting off here with kind of, again, this is going to be a nice satin shade here, and you can see this is going to be a coppery brown. I think this is a really pretty shade. This is one of my favorites, and it's smooth, it's creamy. Next up, we have more of, this has that velvety matte texture, but it has a bit more of a satin finish. This is more of a satin matte, and this is going to be more of a soft mustard gold. Then we have a velvety matte here in kind of, you know, it's like a khaki, like khaki pants with a little bit, you know, that dark khaki that has a little bit of that orangey hue. That's kind of what we have here. It's a little bit lighter than that. Next up, this is going to be a bit more of that silky powdery matte, and this is going to be a soft peachy beige. And then in the bottom row, we have a nice creamy velvety texture here. I mean, look at this. You can see this is one, you put it where you want it and then you blend it out. And that's one of the things I want to mention actually about his shadows. A lot of the deeper shades that are more pigmented, they have more grip to them. And, you know, so you'll put it where you want it and then you can softly blend it out from there. But it's great because you're not getting kind of a mess anywhere you don't want it. So it makes it easier to work with. Next up, we have more of a satin gold. And this is going to be a nice, more yellow tone gold. You can see it's kind of more of a silky satin formula. This one is a little bit more firm in the pan. Next, we have, you know, it's not your silky, it's a silky matte, but again, it has slightly more grip, but you can see this one's more powdery here. And this is going to be a deep brown. This one actually has, it's the coolest one in this particular palette. It's more of that espresso brown, but it's a neutral brown. It's not a cool tone brown. It just looks cooler compared to the other shades here. And then our last shade in this palette here is going to be more of a satin ivory shade there. And that's a freckle that I have there. So you can see it's a nice, smooth, creamy satin. So this is Wonderful Warm. Let's take a look at New Neutral. All right, so this is New Neutral. It's definitely a neutral palette. You can see you can even break this into 2 quads if you want, one slightly warmer, one slightly cooler, but overall the palette is neutral. This is probably, you know, this one might be my favorite palette out of all 8 of them. And I just think it's a really great mix of tones here. So our first shade here, we have a nice silky powdery matte there. And this is going to be a medium to deep brown. It's neutral, but we've got a little bit of some cooler tones in there. Next up, we have a satin, and this is, again, a firmer satin like the one up here. And you can see this is going to be a neutral brown with a touch of copper in there, but you can see it's cooler in tone than the one from Wonderful Warm, but we still have a little bit of warmth in there overall. Next, we have a silky matte in ivory. And then the last shade in the top row is going to be more of that silky satin, and this is going to be a peachy champagne. As for the bottom row, we have this shade here, and this is one of those ones that, again, has a little bit more grip to it, so it doesn't swatch quite as well as it does when you put it on, because we've got kind of like a little bit more adherence to the skin right when you put it down, and then you can blend it out and you can see it almost looks black, but it's actually going to be a deep cocoa brown. This shade here, it's almost like a muddy camel brown, and you can see that's got some warmth to it. And then we've got some shimmers here. So this is going to be more of your metallic shade here, that melts into the skin. And you can see this is going to be an ivory champagne. You can see more of that ivory hue compared to the peach in the earlier shade. And then this is one of my favorites in all 8 of the palettes. This is going to be more of a taupe. It leans a little more brown than a true taupe. But when you build it up, you get more of that, a little bit more gray in there. So it's more of a true taupe then. And this is going to be a satin shimmer. It's finely milled. It's creamy. I think that's a really great one. So this is the new neutral palette. So let's go through these again. We've got Rebellious Red and Pink. So that's from here to here. And then we have Outstanding Orange. Then up here, we have the Wonderful Warm. And this one is New Neutral. So let's go ahead and move on to the cooler tones. Now, I do need to apologize. I'm not that great at swatching on my right arm. And so we'll do what we can here. But we're going to start off with the Generous Green and Yellow. So that's this one here. So our first shade here is another one with a grip, and this is going to be a deep, it's not quite an evergreen, think more like blue spruce. We do have a bit of a blue hue in the undertone here, so it's kind of like a blue spruce evergreen. And again, this is one that is going to have that velvety texture with a little bit more grip, so it really stays put. Next, we have this beautiful green shimmer, and this is like Lucky Clover kind of green. So like a Kelly green shimmer. This one, it does have a little bit more grip to it. It's not perhaps as emollient as some of the other shades we've looked at, but it's going to be that satin finish there. Then we have a velvety matte in a similar hue. You can see that the matte of that is going to be very similar. It's perhaps slightly more yellow in comparison to the shimmer, but they are almost the same shade. Next, we have another soft metallic, and this is going to be your yellow green. Think of brand new spring leaves, touch more yellow in them. Now, moving on to the bottom row, we have a velvety green. This one, though, is a little bit drier. And you can see that this is going to look more like a true green. Think like green Crayola crayon. And it's a really pretty shade. In the palette, just kind of looking at it, you can see they look kind of similar, but this is definitely going to be much more of a true green on the skin. One of my favorite shades is this next shade, which is going to be a light satin green. And this is going to be, you know, it's not quite sage. It's kind of like a sage mint. And this is going to be a soft, shimmery satin. It's going to be very smooth. And then we have 2 more here. So we have, I like to think of this one as a more grounded green. This is going to have that velvety matte texture to it. And you can see it's not going to be quite as bright. We have a little bit more depth to the shade, and just a little bit more of a neutral green. And then our last shade here is going to be more of a yellow here. And you can see this is yellow. Again, although these two both have yellow, they're both yellow shades, we have a touch of green in both of them. This is not a true yellow. And this is going to be a soft shimmer. So this is our Generous Green and Yellow palette. I really like how we've got kind of this really deep green here that actually blends really well with the other shades. Moving on to one of my favorites, this is Brilliant Blue. And blue, you know, for somebody who's not a professional, this can be very daunting. And, you know, it seems a little scary to work with blue eyeshadow at sometimes, especially since we've got some dark and some bright blues. But this is a great palette to work with. And I love all the different tones in here. So our first blue, I mean, look at this bright electric cobalt blue here. This is stunning. I want this in the eyeliner. And you can see this is going to be a matte. It's a silky matte. We do have a little bit more grip to this, so it does give good control. This is one that you can use as an eyeliner on its own. Next, with a more velvety texture, we have more of a deep navy blue here, but you can see it's really, once you spread that out, it's actually more of a mid-tone navy, not that deep navy. Next, we have a matte. This is going to be a sky blue, and this is going to be in the silky matte texture. And you can see we've got some vibrancy with that. Think more of that sky blue on a bright sunny day. Next, we have one of those chunkier metallics, and this makes me think of Elsa from Frozen. So you can see this is going to be a blue, icy, frosty shade. This one in particular, I love mixing with the other palettes as well. On the bottom row, we're actually starting off with more some teals here, and this is going to be your velvety texture here with a bit more grip, and you can see this is going to be your deep peacock teal here. It matches the eyeliner that I have. Next, we have a teal shimmer. This is another favorite of mine. I mean, look at this. So this is actually going to be a very finely milled shimmer, but this is a satin metallic. The shade matches the matte one pretty closely. And then we've got two more shades here. So this one is going to be a velvety matte. This is going to be a bright electric blue. Again, another stunning shade here. I love these brighter shades here. And then we have a very pale light blue. This is going to be a little bit more airy compared to this sky blue. It's kind of like a lighter version, and it has perhaps, you know, it's a little bit of a warmer blue compared to this one. So this one here is the Brilliant Blue palette. So we have Generous Green and Yellow, Brilliant Blue. Let's move on to the purple. Now this is Passionate Purple, and this is one of my favorite palettes because we've got true purples here. A lot of times we see purple eyeshadows, and you know, when we see even like an all purple palette, a lot of times they run pretty pink. This actually has a well balance of kind of those more pinky purples and those more blue purples. So let's go ahead and we're going to kind of try up here. So this first shade is going to be a little bit more of a magenta purple. We have a little bit more like a purple violet. I'm going to add a little bit more. Now this palette itself runs a little bit drier than some of the others. The products are a little bit more firmly put in the pan. So, you know, we'll talk about that when we get to it. But that first shade is going to be a matte. It has a little bit of grip. It's not quite, it's a little bit drier than the other velvety textured mattes, but I think it's closer to that than the silky powder. Next, we have a nice creamy, velvety, soft, more of an orchid purple, and this is going to be a subtle satin. And again, we've got a little bit of pink in there. Next, we're moving on to a silky powdery matte. This is one of my favorites, and you can see we've got this nice blue base purple here, and it's just a really beautiful like wisteria purple. One of my favorite shades here is this last one, and this, again, it's a little bit firmer in the pan. You get your product up with no problem though. It's not like a hard pan kind of situation. And this is going to be a soft, oops, I touched a little bit of the blue. This is going to be a soft purple there. Let me just go over that blue spot there. And you can see we've got a little bit of that blue undertone from the wisteria, but this is, I think, more of a very soft lilac, like I think actually maybe even a bearded iris that is just blooming. Now on the bottom row, we have more of a true grape purple matte here, and this is going to be your silky powdery matte. And you can see that is going to be a pretty even mix of pink and blue. Next, we have another shimmer. I love this one as well. And this is going to have a bit more, it's got a little bit more, it's more pigmented. It's not quite as blue. It's more of a medium tone blue in here compared to this one. Another really pretty shade, but you can see that this one's got a little bit more pink in it. And then we've got a matte, and this is going to be a soft iris purple. Think of like a wild iris. And that is pretty balanced. And then our last shade here is actually going to be a soft pink. This is like a soft pink blush. Oh, I keep touching that blue one. With a little bit, it's a matte with a touch of shimmer in there. All right, so this one here is Passionate Purple. So Generous Green and Yellow, Brilliant Blue, Passionate Purple, and now we have a cool palette left. So this one is Compose Cool, and this one actually makes me think a lot of the Natasha Denona Xenon palette. So if you don't have that one, this might be a nice smaller size alternative. We start off with a creamy metallic, and this is going to be a silver with blue tones. You can see with those blues right there, you can see a little bit more of that blue hue. If you isolate it, you still see a little bit of that icy blue. Next, we have a velvety matte, and this is going to be a charcoal gray. Formula on this is very smooth and creamy with a little bit of grip. Next, we have more of a pewter shimmer here, and this is going to be more of a creamy satin. And then our last shade in the first row is kind of a mix of pewter and charcoal. You can see this is going to be a medium tone blue-gray shimmer. This is going to be one of those more creamy metallics. It's not super chunky, but it does kind of have that melting texture. And then we have a black, and I have to say this is the most velvety black that I've ever felt. I mean, it feels so plush. In this, I love this black because it is, again, it has the most grip of any other product here. And yeah, sorry, I've got like a little bit of a scab left over here. So if you see that, that's what that is. But yeah, look at that black, true black. It stays where you put it. There's no fallout with that black. It's just so easy to use. Next, we have this is going to be more of a brownish gray. And you can see this is going to be more of a satin matte. There's no shimmer in it, but it's got more of that satin sheen. And then we have a cooler tone gray matte here. This is going to be more of that velvety texture there. These two are both kind of velvety texture. So it's going to be a cooler, lighter version. You can see it's more neutral, less blue than the charcoal we had earlier. And then our last shade here is going to be the silky matte in white. So this is going to be Compose Cool. So let's look at all 8 of these one more time. All right, so we have Rebellious Red and Pink, Outstanding Orange, Wonderful Warm, New Neutral. Then over here on the cool side, we have Generous Green and Yellow. Let's focus in on that a little more. And then we have Brilliant Blue, Passionate Purple, and this is Compose Cool. So really, some great selections. Let's look at the eye demos and we'll talk a bit more about these. Before we get into details on the eyeshadows, I do want to go over the details on the eyeliners. And the Longwear Waterproof Precision Gel Eyeliner, those retail for $24 US. Those are the ones that have the retractable product. And these are described as a waterproof gel liner that glides on smoothly without tugging for a sharp matte finish. They have a built-in sharpener that allows for extreme precision with each use. This eyeliner's long-wearing formula features a blend of vegan wax and run-resistant polymers to lock down and set color once dry. There are 8 flattering shades. And these, they set, they stay put, they're creamy, easy to use, smudge out beautifully, if you do that right in the beginning. I think they're a great formula. I really like these, and we've got a lot of fun colors in this eyeliner. There's also going to be a very intense black that should be comparable to this black eyeshadow that we just looked at. As for product details on these, as I mentioned, they retail for $24 US. We have 0.4 grams of product, and these are made in Korea. As for the kohl eyeliners, these are called the Soft Velvet Creamy Kohl Eyeliners, and there are 3 shades. They retail for $22 US each. So there's a black, a brown, and a taupe. These are described as a creamy matte kohl pencil that easily blends and smokes out to your desired look. It's infused with squalene, vitamin E, and coconut oil. The super soft, non-drying formula easily glides across lids and the lash line. Special flexible polymers allow for the perfect amount of playtime to blend out before setting your soft or smoky eye look. And again, these are going to have a bit more of that texture of a traditional eye pencil, more of that powdery velvet texture. It blends out, it's creamy to apply. It sets down probably maybe like 85% of the way. If you go and you try to smudge it later on in the day, you can do that, depending on how much oil you have in your skin. But it does pretty much says really well for a kohl product. And this is just, if you like those more traditional eyeliner pencils, this is that, but just a little bit creamier and, more tug-free to go on. So there are 1.5 grams of product. Again, this is one that requires a sharpener. These are made in Italy and we have a 1-year shelf life. Now the eyeshadow palettes are probably the highlight of this collection. So let's talk about these. We have 8 shades. These retail for $49 US. There are 8 shades in each palette at 1.8 grams per shade. And these are going to be made in Italy. We have a 1-year shelf life with these as well. Just like all the other products in the line, these are a vegan product. Now, some details from the website. These are an ultra pigmented eyeshadow palette featuring 4 unique finishes and high impact shades expertly coordinated in wearable color families. Built around a color story, each shade and formula is thoughtfully arranged by Hung for the perfect combination of high artistry and easy wearability. The ultra pigmented shades deliver crisp, vivid color in 4 artistry-born finishes. There's 3D Creamy Matte, an innovative cream to powder formula with sensorial wax technology for rich pigment that blends easily and locks down. We have Classic Matte with a soft, non-powdery finish. So those are the ones I describe as more of a silky matte. There's Satin for high impact color and wear without glitter, and those are the ones that are very finely milled. And Metallic, formulated with a sophisticated blend of pearls to deliver maximum reflection and luminosity. Now, although we do have 4 official formulas here, I did go through all of the shades as we're swatching with just some little differences between some of the shades. Depending on how much pigment and which pigments are being used in them, it can kind of impact how some particular shades can feel or wear. So definitely check out the swatches for more notes on specific shades there. Now, it's just way too many eyeshadows to be able to do individual eye swatches for each shade, but I did want to kind of highlight each of the palettes and more of a range of looks that you can do with each of them. So I do have 2 looks per palette, plus a few other looks that I was wearing throughout the week, and we do have a wear test we're going to be jumping to in a few minutes. So overall, with the palettes, you can see that they're really easy to apply. Each palette does have, kind of lighter shades as well as deeper shades. We've got the different finishes in there. We've got some with a little bit more grip, some with a little bit more slip for blendability. And I think all of the shades overall work really well together. I personally really love how the color stories were created. So, every palette has its own color story, but even within there, we do have shades that will suit a variety of people, a variety of undertones and skin tones there. So I really like how, some of those things are blended. So yes, our rebellious red and pink palette is overall going to be a warm palette, but we do still have, kind of a cooler tone and some neutral tones in there to kind of balance things out. Same thing with the orange palette. Again, it's overall a warm palette, but we do have some cooler tone hues in there to kind of balance things out as well. Perhaps not necessarily a cool tone per se, but a neutral shade, something that's cooler than the rest. So everything is very well balanced, and I feel like the colors that are designated as warm, cool, and neutral are fairly accurate. Which really is no surprise coming from Hung Vanngo. He knows what he's talking about here. Now, as for my personal favorites with these palettes, it's really hard to pick and choose because, the purple palette, the Passionate Purple, it's probably my favorite color story. I love purples. I think it's really difficult to find a good purple palette that has more of those blue-based purples and isn't necessarily a redder tone purple palette. So I really love that. I love the tones in there. I love the mix of different finishes, but it is going to be a little bit of a drier palette compared to some of the others. It has not impacted its performance for me. But you know, it does kind of impact how I like to apply the products. Typically, I like to apply eyeshadows in general with brushes. I love using brushes and you know, that's typically how I will apply my shadows. However, I have noticed with these palettes, with all 8 of these, you know, the metallics and the shimmers, I actually prefer to use a fingertip application or a foam tip applicator with these, because not only am I getting more pigment, but particularly with some of the formulas like the metallics, where you really want to blend those out and kind of melt it into your skin, using a fingertip in particular is just, it's a little bit more advantageous because you have that body heat that helps melt it into your skin as you're applying it. And you get this really nice, smooth finish that way. There's no tugging. I have to say, that's one of the great things about the shimmers in these palettes. You know, for the most part, they kind of have this like melting technology, but even so, regardless of what you use to apply them, they're not a gritty formula. So although I did do all of these demos and so forth, and yes, my eyes got a little sore from doing that from the removal, they weren't getting sore or gritty from any sort of like glittery texture that can sometimes happen with some of the shimmer shadows. So I really appreciate how these kind of have more of a melting you know, formula with contact from your body heat. So I feel like the fingertip application just kind of speeds that along. It makes it very smooth and creamy to apply. It's also easier to get that more pigmented look with the shimmers. Even with our satins and so forth, you know, you're going to get a softer application with those. I do like to use a brush with those at some times, depending on how soft I want to go. But if I want to see more pigment, more shimmer, I definitely use a fingertip application for those as well. The mattes, you know, I really like to use brushes with those. The silky powdery mattes, you know, those go, they blend out beautifully with like a more like fluffy brush, or you can use any brush with those, but they perform very well with a brush. Whereas the more velvety ones with the grip, those I also like to use either a fingertip or a brush that is more dense. So either a flat shader that's very dense, or one of those like rounded fingertip style brushes where it's dense, something like I'm thinking off the top of my head, it's a rougher 12. My brush must be dirty right now, so I can't find that one, but you know, something that's a little bit more of that ball shape that's very short and dense, where you can kind of just pat it on. So I think that works really well for more of those velvety mattes, and then you can kind of blend those out however you desire. I really like having these different combination of formulas, and I think that one of the best things is that those more pigmented shades that can be harder to work with, for the most part, most of those deeper shades are going to have that more velvety, grippy texture to them, which really makes them easy to use. But we do still have some deeper shades that are going to be that silky texture that you can kind of blend out with those. So I think everything was just really well thought out, and they work together very well. Now, I have to admit, in the beginning, I was a little disappointed that the brushes were not as effective with the shimmers as I would have liked. You can definitely still use it that way. You know, perhaps it takes a little bit more effort than using a fingertip application. But once I switched to using my fingers, you know, I just realized that it's really just such a fast, easy way to work with these. And I just prefer it. So I think that's just a really great and easy way to work with these. And I like how, you know, you can use your finger. It helps it melt into the skin, but it also gives you plenty of control here. So I think, you know, everything here was well designed. There are a few shades, you know, in the purple palette and the green palette, and, you know, kind of here or there that perhaps are a little bit drier than some of the others. And, you know, perhaps that's intentional with some of the shades. I think with the purples in particular, you know, purples and, you know, they can be a little bit harder to get the right texture with the pigments that are used. And I think overall though, although the texture of that particular palette is a little bit drier than some of the others, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It just makes it a little bit more of a softer palette unless you're going in with your fingertips. and then you can really build that up. So in a way, it gives you a little bit more control over whether you want a softer or more pigmented finish with that particular one, because again, some of those are a little bit drier, they're a little bit firmer in the pan, but they are not, it's not like a hard pan situation where you're not able to pick up the product. It's really more just how the pigments kind of play with the rest of that formula. So as for my personal favorites then, coming down to it, I definitely always prefer cooler tones. If I had to pick my very favorite palette out of all 8, it's going to be the New Neutral. It's probably the one that I will use the most, and it's one that I love to mix with some of the other palettes. I also really like mixing the Compose Cool with the other palettes. You know, I just think that they work very well. Both of those palettes have, you know, stellar formulas there. And then following that, it's probably the purple, then the blue, then the green, and then Wonderful Warm, orange, and pink. And again, those like warmer tone ones they're not really my colors, but they would look beautiful on some other skin tones. So that would be my personal ranking for the eyeshadow palettes. But overall, we've got such a great selection of colors, and these really work well to mix and match. And as you can see, we're gonna just take a look at this wear test in just a second, but these really do hold up all day without creasing. So, you know, sometimes I've worn these with a primer, sometimes I haven't. You know, I've actually worn them for longer days than what I have in the wear test. I just kind of forgot to go back and film that before removing my makeup. And I have not had any creasing with these shadows. So they hold up really well, and I don't have any fallout or residue under my eyes at the end of the day. So I'm very impressed. And you can see that the blushes and the lipsticks, they hold up really well also. So let's go ahead and move on to that wear test here so you can see how everything has performed. All right, so it has been 9.5 hours since I applied everything. I actually wiped off the lipstick before eating with a tissue. This is the stain that was left over after wiping it. I just have a regular lip balm on top of it. So let me bring you in closer so you can see the eyes. All right, so here's the blush. I didn't apply any additional highlight or anything. This is just, I've got the Natasha Denona foundation on with the Valentino V-Light primer underneath. And this is the eyeshadow. And you can see there's no creasing, no fallout, no nothing. Like, it is nice and clean. And again, this is the amount of stain left from the lipstick, just topped with the Sisley lip balm. All right, and you can also see that the eyeliner, you know, this didn't smudge, it stayed put, it's exactly where I placed it, everything has held up really well. So I hope that has been helpful. One more time, let's take a look at the eyeshadow palettes. So this is Rebellious Red and Pink. And overall, it's going to be a warmer tone palette. We've got some rusty and some rosy notes. So you do have some cooler tone shades, but for the most part, it's going to be warmer. Then we have Outstanding Orange, which, you know, we've got some peachy shades, but we also go all the way kind of to like a burnt orange and pumpkin shades. It's a really nice blend here. And this is going to be Wonderful Warm, which is a great palette for your warm neutrals. So we've got a really nice mix of colors and textures here, and that's going up through here where we have kind of this ivory shimmer there. And then this is New Neutral, which again, we've got some, they're all neutral shades. Some are going to lean a little cool, some will lean a little warm, but we've got a great balance there. And then moving on, this is Generous Green and Yellow. Really nice mix of shades. Again, I really love these more like velvety matte shades with extra grip for those deeper shades. Brilliant Blue. I mean, I just love these kind of electric shades and the teal shimmers in here. We've got Passionate Purple. So happy that we have some more blue-based purples in here. And then Compose Cool. So I think overall we've got some really great shades in here, a great mix of formulas. I think the color stories are very cohesive. They're fun to mix and match. And, you know, this whole line is essentially celebrating, you know, playing with makeup, having fun, celebrating color, but yet we still have those neutrals for everyday looks or to mix and match. The blushes, I'm really happy with the formula. I do plan on picking up some more items from this launch. I want to get, you know, another blush and some lipsticks and possibly some more eyeliners as well. So yeah, you know, I'm very happy with this. Thank you so much to Hung Vanngo for gifting me with these items here today. Again, lipstick wise, First Cover is definitely my favorite out of the three that I've tried, but I think the formula is really nice. And we have more of that satin matte finish on the lips. It's going to be a full coverage lipstick, you know, high pigmentation. It stains, it lasts all day, and yet it's still easy to remove later on. So I think it's a really great product. And one of the best things is it's not drying or uncomfortable on my lips, even after many hours. So I find it to be it's a comfortable product. Just so you know, it's not a transfer proof product. So, you know, if you're drinking out of a glass, you will get some residue on there. So yeah, I think everything has been fantastic. I'd love to know what you're looking forward to in this line. Let me know what you think of everything featured here today, and let me know if you've tried anything out. Thank you so much for watching today. I really hope that this was helpful, and I really appreciate your support. So again, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you very soon, and thanks for watching.